Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. Since it was announced in early February that Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler would be the next Ultimate Fighter coaches, the entire MMA community and a lot of casual fans have wondered, when are we getting Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler? When are we going to get a fight announcement? When are we going to get a date for this fight? And now it is the middle of June, and we still don't have a fight announcement. We still don't have a date for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. And I believe Conor McGregor may very well ruin Michael Chandler's career. Michael Chandler did an interview recently that we're going to take a look at some clips in a minute, where he doesn't exactly say it. He does not say this fight's not happening this year. He actually kind of says, oh, I'm very hopeful that it happens this year. We're going to take a look at the clips in a minute and you can decide for yourself. But if you read between the lines of this interview, the vibe that I got is that there is no chance Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler happens in 2023. So if you don't know the entire backstory of this, they were announced as the Ultimate Fighter coaches in early February. They filmed the show somewhere between early February and April. It started airing on May 30th. The Ultimate Fighter will air from May 30th to mid-August. And usually when they have a season of the Ultimate Fighter where they have two fighters coaching, they're going to fight each other at the end. The whole point of the show is to promote the future fight. Well, now there's already multiple episodes that have aired, and we're going to talk about the Ultimate Fighter as a whole itself and how it's an absolute disaster. I was going to make a whole entire other video about it, but I'll kind of fit it in at the end of this video. But there's been 2 episodes that have already aired, and we still don't have a date for this fight. And then on top of that, Conor McGregor, who left the USADA pool, has still not re-entered the USADA pool. If you do not understand what the USADA pool is the randomized drug testing that the UFC has. It's supposed to be third party. They pay USADA. USADA randomly drug tests the athletes. Conor McGregor left the USADA pool. Presumably, basically off of his own admission, he is using banned substances to heal his leg, to do whatever he may be doing. It's been almost 2 years since he injured his leg. But he's using banned substances that he would pop from USADA for. But it's been speculated for now 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Oh, well, any minute now, Conor McGregor is going to rejoin the USADA pool because there is a 6-month waiting period. You have to be in the USADA pool for 6 months before you can return to the UFC and actually fight. Because otherwise, you could just leave the USADA pool, juice up, re-enter the USADA pool, get a fight in 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and you could fight with those same benefits from those PEDs. So the point of the 6-month waiting period is to make sure that you are a clean athlete going into the fight. Now, the UFC can issue an exemption. They have before with Brock Lesnar. It blew up in their face. He ended up testing positive anyway. We knew he was cheating. The UFC knew he was cheating. They decided to do it anyway. Now, with Conor, there's been vague answers from Dana White, but when some media members have reached out to USADA, they say, well, Conor's got to be in the pool for 6 months if he wants to fight. And he's still not entered the pool. They announced it, I think, after the first episode of The Ultimate Fighter, that, yeah, Conor's going to be re-entering the Ultimate Fighter, or not the Ultimate Fighter, the USADA testing pool, and the Ultimate Fighter's so great, and this is like a post recap of the Ultimate Fighter of the season debut, and they acted like, oh, he's in the USADA pool. Well, now it's been a couple weeks. There's still no testing history from USADA for Conor McGregor. They update it weekly. So now we're looking at the final event of the year, which I believe will be UFC 295, or actually it'll be UFC 296, will be December 16th of 2023. Well, we are getting close to being 6 months out from that December 16th date. So if Conor McGregor wants to fight December 16th at UFC 296, then he's going to have to get back in the USADA pool in the next couple days. And people are wondering, is he going to get back in the USADA pool? Because I don't think it's possible. I don't think the UFC would issue him an exemption. An exemption would mean essentially you can test clean twice, no matter what the time period may be. As long as you have 2 clean tests, you can still fight. I don't think they're going to issue him that exemption. They may, just because he's a massive star. But at that point, you might as well get rid of the whole USADA program if they're willing to do that. And now we're getting to a point where if Conor does not enter the USADA pool in the next basically 3 to 5 days, depending on what time, what exactly USADA means by the 6-month period, if you go by days or you go by actual months. And if he doesn't enter, he's not fighting this year. And we're going to take a look at what Michael Chandler said in this interview. I have a couple clips I want to look at. And there's really, the last clip I'm going to show you is very, very telling in my opinion. But the other thing I want to mention in this video is there was a leak that came out earlier today that said, I have a source, and basically if Conor doesn't re-enter the USADA pool in the next 2 days or so, then the UFC is going to go in a different direction and find Michael Chandler a different opponent. Now, I know that's been widely circulating around online, and that may very well be true. I've been adamant. You can go back and watch the videos on my channel. I've been adamant since this fight was announced, or this potential fight was announced. Basically, they say, oh, it's going to happen. We don't have a date yet. I've been adamant that this fight is not happening. You can go back and watch all the videos on my YouTube channel regarding Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. I've been adamant that this fight doesn't happen, and definitely doesn't happen in 2023. So you have these leaks that come out, but they're not really reliable, okay? So I'm not going to sit here and speculate too much on the leaks, because this guy isn't known for necessarily being a trustworthy source. He's not a guy that's been putting out false information for years, and he's like a known person that just looks for clout. But at the same time, it's not like he has a long history of breaking news. So you have to take those admissions with a grain of salt, even though he could just be making an educated guess. I've been making an educated guess for the last few months that this fight isn't happening. So he could be making an educated guess, but I figured I would mention it in this video as well. I don't necessarily believe those leaks, but for me, when I look at all the different aspects of this fight coming together, for me, I believe it does not happen. So basically, that guy is correct regardless, but I just wanted to mention that in this video. Now, let's take a look at, you have Michael Chandler, who did an interview with Aaron Bronsteter from TSN, and I'll link the entire interview down in the description if you want to go check it out. I clipped out, I think, about 2 minutes of the interview, 2.5 minutes of the interview, the very pertinent parts. Let's take a look at what Michael Chandler had to say when he was asked, what's going on with the Conor McGregor fight? Why hasn't it been scheduled yet? Conor McGregor's basically not in the USADA pool next. And let's take a look at what Michael Chandler had to say.
You came to the UFC and said you're not here for a long time, you're here for a good time. But it seems like you might be here for a long time waiting for Conor McGregor. He's not yet in the USADA pool. What's the latest that you've heard about the status of your fight with him?
Man, so the latest that I've heard is things are getting close. We should be hopefully finding out some more information very soon. You know, the thing about Conor is, you know, you heard Dana say it. It's hard to reel him back in. He's out there doing all kinds of things. He's got the show. And even, you know, I'm living that as well right now. We have something big going on right now. We're not missing anything. Yeah, we're not fighting. We don't have a fight lined up. There's no training camp. But every single week on ESPN, we're getting tons and tons of eyeballs, and I'm out here in New York doing media. I'm here with you doing media.
So there you hear Michael Chandler reference a Dana White post-fight scrum, and I have the clip for that as well. We're going to take a look at that in 1 second. But a couple things he says, like, oh, we're hoping to get some information soon. Basically, he's saying, I have no idea what's going on. But, you know, Dana, he said recently it's hard to reel these guys back in. And, you know, they have so much money that it's hard to get them back in and make them want a fist fight. And we're going to take a look at the Dana White clip in 1 second. But one thing I want you to remember for the end of the video is he talks about, oh, well, the show's going on right now. And every week on ESPN, we have a lot of eyeballs on us. And essentially acting as if, because the show is airing, it's not like they're filming it right now, because the show is airing and they're doing media for the show, that somehow substitutes them not having a fight in 4 to 5 months from now. Makes absolutely no sense. Michael Chandler seems like he's completely out of the loop in this clip. He doesn't seem like he knows what's going on. But let's take a look at the clip that he referenced of Dana White from a post-fight scrum a couple weeks ago, where he specifically is asked about Conor McGregor fighting Michael Chandler.
Like, we know they're supposed to fight. They were coaches, you know,
right.
But we know he's got to get back in the pool. But
yeah, we've had, first of all, Conor called me a couple days ago and loved the first episode of The Ultimate Fighter and saying how happy he was that he was a part of it. And I think being here in the environment and everything else, he felt it again and felt like he wants to get back and fight. The one thing that you guys have to understand is this kid has so much money. It's like Habib now. It's like these guys got shitloads of money. And it's hard to, it's hard to reel these guys back in and get them fired up to get in a fight.
Concerned that maybe he doesn't fight again?
I never get concerned. You know what I mean? Listen, when guys show, we have a massive roster of people that want to come in and people that are ready to fight and people that want to be Conor McGregor, you know, and be at that level.
So there you hear Dana White answer the question specifically. Basically, when's Conor going to fight? And then he even asked, are you worried that Conor McGregor never fights again? And Dana White goes on a tangent like, yeah, these guys are so rich. Conor McGregor has so much money. It's hard to reel him back in. And what that tells me is something's going on behind the scenes and they're still trying to get this fight figured out, but it may not happen because then there's a follow-up question that says, well, are you worried that Conor McGregor may never fight again? And Dana White's like, oh, I'm never worried. There's plenty of other fighters that we're building up. There's plenty of other fighters that want to be the next Conor McGregor. And what that tells me is Dana White is kind of publicly negotiating like, oh, we don't care. We don't care. If Conor doesn't fight, he doesn't fight. What is crazy to me is the people who are tuning in every week for The Ultimate Fighter are tuning in because they want to see build up to a mega fight between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. And what was always compelling about The Ultimate Fighter was you saw the coaches' interaction, the show aired, and then within a couple weeks to a month after the show aired, you had the coaches fighting each other. That's what made it interesting. And the show's going to end in mid-August. Best case scenario in a perfect world, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler will happen in mid-December. So, in my opinion, The Ultimate Fighter is basically selling wolf tickets because the show's going to end and then you're going to have to wait 4 or 5 months for it to even happen. I just think that's absolutely crazy. And I think it should ruin the viewing experience for a lot of viewers. And I'm wondering, and we're going to talk about it more at the end of this video, if the viewership is going to drop off steadily for the next few weeks because people are going to be like, well, this fight isn't happening. Why am I even watching this? Now, there's another clip of Michael Chandler. I have 2 more clips to show you. There's another clip of Michael Chandler basically discussing a date of when this fight could happen. And you could really take away a lot from this clip. Let's take a look at it and then we'll come back and react.
I think once this show starts to come closer to middle to the end, we're going to find more of a solidified game plan and path moving forward. I think Conor will be in the USADA testing pool very soon. I do think this fight happens before the end of the year. And you also got to remember too, Conor is very romantic and very loyal to this game. He's very romantic about it, and he's very loyal to the game and the purity of the game. For him to not come back and fight me after we've already talked about it, Dana has talked about it, the media has talked about it, everybody has talked about it, the fight is going to happen.
So there you hear Michael Chandler saying, oh, I'm hoping we're going to get some answers in the middle of the show or maybe the end of the show. And what I really got from this clip, and he says, you know, Conor's really loyal to the game and we've already talked about this fight. The fans are excited for it. Dana's talked about it. The media's talked about it. It's going to happen. What I got from this full clip was Michael Chandler is begging Conor McGregor to fight. He believes that Conor McGregor is not going to fight him because, oh, Conor's so loyal. There's no way he could come back and not fight me. And Michael Chandler's essentially what he's been doing for the last 2 years, which is basically just rimming Conor McGregor and trying to flatter Conor McGregor and trying to use the psychological nice guy act to say, oh, Conor, we've already sold this to the fans. Dana's already talked about this. We've already done the show. You can't return and not fight me. Well, guess what, Chandler? He may very well never return, or he may return and not fight you. I could not believe this clip, and you guys have to go watch the full interview again. I will link it down below because there's some portions of this that I cut out where Chandler was just, he was just attempting to just brown nose Conor McGregor over and over and over again. It actually made me sick the way one grown man was just drooling over another grown man. And what it is he's trying to convince Conor McGregor nicely and publicly to fight him. Because if Michael Chandler comes out and starts saying negative things about Conor McGregor is going to say, oh, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm not fighting you, because he already seems like he's lukewarm on the idea anyway. I could totally see if Chandler came out and said anything negative, Conor would come out and say, I'm not fighting him now. He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve red panty night. And that's what I got from that clip. Now let's take a look at one final clip. And I actually thought this clip was the most telling about where Michael Chandler is in terms of being informed by the UFC regarding this massive fight with Conor McGregor. Let's take a look at it.
Well, if we're to believe USADA, who say that they are requiring Conor McGregor to be in the USADA pool for 6 months with at least 2 negative tests before he can return to UFC action, he's got 2 days basically to get in the USADA pool if you actually want to have hopes of fighting him by the end of the year. Does that make you nervous at all?
A little bit. I think it's actually 5. I think I Googled, I asked Siri how many days until December 16th. That's 185 days. So, so we got, we were coming down to the wire here. But then again, like we said, you can hear Chael Sonnen talk about it, whether it be exemptions, whether it be negative tests, whatever it may be. I know we all know Conor's MO. Conor loves to have is not afraid of a tussle with anything, whether it be, the promoter, the fighter, the law, the governing bodies, whatever it may be. He's not afraid of a tussle.
So there you hear Aaron Bronstetter ask an amazing follow-up question. Well, Chandler, if you believe that this fight is going to happen at the end of 2023, Conor McGregor has 2 days to rejoin the USADA pool. And shout out to Aaron Bronstetter for asking these questions and for covering the Conor McGregor USADA saga for the last few months, because he works for a TV partner of the UFC, and he's part of that MMA media, landscape where he doesn't want to really piss off Dana White or the UFC, but he's asking these questions anyway. And Michael Chandler says the most telling part of this entire interview, in my opinion. And that's that, Bronstetter says, well, he has 2 days to rejoin. And Chandler goes, well, I just asked Siri, and he actually has 5 days. Because Chandler asked, how many days until December 16th, which is the UFC 296 pay-per-view? And it's 185 days away. So therefore, the 180 deadline cutoff for Conor to join the USADA pool is 5 days away. So the fact that he's asking Siri, when is the cutoff for Conor McGregor to join the USADA pool, does that make you confident that this fight's actually going to happen? Does Michael Chandler really believe that this fight's going to happen? Because what I took away from this is absolutely not. And then he has the audacity to say, and this is honestly embarrassing in my opinion, well, if you listen to Chael, he talks about 2 clean tests and exemptions and this and that. Michael Chandler is completely in the dark regarding his own fight against Conor McGregor, because he is literally getting his information from Chael Sonnen's YouTube channel. That is the worst possible place to get credible information on MMA. Chael Sonnen makes 25 videos a day about whatever topics he can get views on, and he just takes a general topic and just makes up stuff surrounding it. And there's no rhyme or reason behind it. I don't even believe he talks to Dana White. And Chandler's literally referencing Chael Sonnen probably brought up the exemption, brought up the 2 clean test. I discussed the exemption earlier in the video, but essentially you can get an exemption. You don't have to be in the testing pool for 6 months, but you have to provide 2 clean samples. He is literally getting that information from Chael Sonnen from his YouTube channel. That is craziness to me. And then you hear some more just Chandler just brown-nosing Conor. Well, Conor, he's not afraid of a tussle, whether it be with the promoter, whether it be with the commission, whether it be with the law, and whether it be with USADA. And he's like, this guy isn't afraid of a tussle. I mean, can you brown-nose any harder? I mean, I don't think this fight's going to happen. I don't think Chandler believes it's going to happen. I don't know if Dana believes it's going to happen. And he's just so desperately in this interview trying to keep it together and trying to say, it's going to happen, and trying to convince Conor McGregor that this fight has to happen. We've already sold it with The Ultimate Fighter. And I 100% believe that there is less than a 5% chance that this happens in 2023. If I had to give my best guess, I think the UFC may push this back. It looks like UFC 300 will probably be in March, depending on how the UFC structures pay-per-view events for the rest of the year. It looks like it's going to be in March or April. They have a big Vegas card in March of 2023. I think best case scenario for Michael Chandler, he fights Conor McGregor at UFC 300 in March. I don't think it's going to happen in December. I think it's very unlikely. But also, I think there's a chance that maybe the UFC makes Michael Chandler fight someone else. And they say, maybe we'll look into rescheduling it after this. Because honestly, Conor may be ruining Michael Chandler's career. Michael Chandler is not particularly young. He's been around forever. He fought in Bellator for many years. And he's going to sit out 15 months? 15 months to wait for a fight that may never materialize? Conor McGregor may very well ruin Michael Chandler's career. And maybe the UFC and Conor McGregor's plan is give Michael Chandler another opponent. Maybe book that in, October or maybe September. The original date for this fight, when people were originally talking about it, was September. Think about how crazy that is. They went from September to now December to now maybe early 2024. I think maybe the plan is to give Michael Chandler another opponent, hopefully get Michael Chandler brutally KO'd, and then hopefully have a quick turnaround against Conor McGregor so Conor McGregor increases the likelihood of a win against Michael Chandler. Now, one last thing I want to discuss in this video is he talked earlier in the video about, we're getting all these eyeballs on The Ultimate Fighter and every single week on ESPN. That is factually incorrect. The debut episode of The Ultimate Fighter did 294,000 views. That is absolute insanity. That is horrible. If you go back and look at the debut episode of the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, or not the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, the first episode of Conor McGregor versus Uriah Faber as Ultimate Fighter coaches back in 2015, it did 622,000 average viewers. And then you look at the second season or second episode ratings for Tough 31, it dropped even lower to 274,000 viewers. This is on par with Power Slap. You look at what Power Slap did when it was on TBS. Keep in mind it got canceled, and that's why they headed over exclusively to Rumble. You look at Power Slap, week 1, 295,000 viewers, almost exactly the same as The Ultimate Fighter. And I believe there will be a slow decline, especially with the fight announcement not happening. If they announce Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor for December or even for January, if they announced it now, I think viewership would kind of return, kind of increase a little bit because people are like, okay, I got to watch this because the fight's actually going to happen. But right now, I think people, first off, they're uninterested with the same format, regurgitate it for 20 years. But also, they're like, okay, well, this fight isn't happening. UFC is selling me wolf tickets. And the vibe I took from Michael Chandler is he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't believe that this fight's going to happen. And he's just holding out hope. And he's just praying to the MMA gods that he gets a red panty night against Conor McGregor. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you think this fight actually happens? Because I certainly don't. My best guess is if it does happen, it will happen in March at UFC 300. That is my best guess. I do not believe that Conor McGregor will rejoin the USADA pool. One last thing I want to mention. I meant to mention this earlier in the video. Aaron Bronstetter also put out a tweet. USADA has not updated their test result database since June 1st, and inquiries I have sent to USADA regarding McGregor's re-enrollment in the program have gone unanswered. I think that's telling as well. I think USADA doesn't want to answer to any media outlets because they don't know what's going on either. They think Conor's supposed to rejoin. The UFC announced it on a broadcast, but he still hasn't rejoined. So it's coming down to the deadline, but ultimately I do not believe that this fight happens in 2023. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.